Hey fellow STEMinists, this is Emlyn Gremlin here.
And Emma Dilemma over here.
And we just have a few quick announcements before the episode. First, we have a correction, so let's walk over to the Oops collection. So Emma, what's our correction today?
Alright, listening back to this week's episode about Rita Levi-Montalcini, I realized that I misspoke a little bit in a very embarrassing moment for an evolutionary biologist. When I was describing Salvador Luria's work, I said that he showed genes don't evolve in response to natural selection. That's incorrect. What I meant to say was new mutations don't evolve in response to natural selection. So just bad word choice, essentially. And I guess in more precise detail, he showed that mutations show up randomly with respect to the selective environment of an organism. So sorry if I confuse anyone, but that's my correction.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So we also just wanted to give a couple shout outs. The first one to DNA Today at DNA Podcast on Twitter for guessing Rita Levi-Montalcini last week. If you want to hear them talk about a bunch of women in genetics, check out their episode 30 on DNA Podcast. Also, I wanted to give out a shout out to Code Like a Girl on Twitter for correctly guessing this historical woman of the week, who we'll talk about in a few minutes. We post these questions before our episode comes out each week, so feel free to guess.
Yeah, we'll give you a shout out.
Yes. I also wanted to give a shout out to people who left reviews for us on iTunes. Thank you, Cool Writer Girl 01, Hawk 4949, Charles Bluesky. Shout out to Danny and Polly Want a Cracker for You. Thanks. If you like the show, please remember to subscribe and write us a review on iTunes. It is super important to help people find the podcast.
Yeah.
And those are all our announcements, so we'll get to the show now.
Yeah, have fun.
Thanks.
Bye.
By circa 1820, she ran a fossil store. She put the bones together for the collectors. And science was the province of men of noble birth. But I take Mary Annie over those stuff white shirts.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Welcome back
To STEM Fatale, a
women
in...
Wait.
A women in
that
science.
Feels miserably.
A women in science history podcast.
Yes.
Dear, dear listeners.
Oh, listeners.
No, we can't do the accents again.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Oh shoot. Don't worry about it.
Welcome back to another week.
And
Yes. Oh, I'm Emlyn like Gremlin.
And I'm Emma like Dilemma.
And we're here today.
We're still here. We're still awkward, and maybe one day
it'll
will
be
less awkward somehow.
I have a question for you. Are you ready to get stimulated?
Ugh. Never.
Okay. Can I ask you another question?
Yes, please.
Is a lead-in?
Ask me any other question.
That is a lead-in to our historical science woman.
Emlyn Gremlin, yes.
Okay. What female scientist has a U.S. Navy warship named after her?
SS Moriarty.
Yes. Is
No,
there
not right.
a woman scientist named Moriarty? Or are you just thinking of Sherlock Holmes?
Yes.
Okay. Then no.
The SS Augusta.
Nope.
The SS
This is going to go on for a long time, isn't it?
No, I'm done.
Okay. I'll give you a second question that might be a little more helpful.
Okay, yeah.
She also, in addition to having a U.S. Navy warship named after her, she also has a supercomputer named after her at the National Energy Research Scientific Computing Center.
Grace Hopper?
Yes!
Yay! That's awesome! I'm excited.
What do you know about Grace Hopper?
I know that she is a computational, one of the first computer... I don't know anything about computers, So that's why I don't know anything.
So she did
about
something with computers.
Yeah, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up. I think the podcast is over.
Yes, thanks.
Good job.
Goodbye.
You did my work for me.
Goodbye. She did computers. It was awesome. End of podcast.
So, I'll tell you. I'll tell you about her.
More.
Okay, so Grace Hopper was born as Grace Brewster Murray.
Oh.
Brewster, Brewster. Great middle name.
Yeah, like she loved the brews.
She loved the brew. If she wasn't a computer scientist, she probably would have been a brewer. Right?
Is that true?
No.
Oh, just because of her name.
Just because of her name.
Yeah.
There's no reason to think that's true.
Actually, I know quite a few scientists that are like, maybe I'll just
open a brewery.
Stop. Maybe I just won't get my PhD and I'll just open a brewery or do something chill.
Yeah, especially people who do like yeast.
Microbiome stuff. Yeah.
Anyways, so she didn't do that.
Yeah.
But she was born
Good.
Grace Brewster Murray, and she was born in New York City in 1906 to Walter Fletcher Murray, who was an owner of an insurance company, so that's her dad, and Mary Campbell Van Horn, who was her mom.
Yeah.
So
she was just born to her.
So she had a curious and analytical mind, and both her parents seemed to encourage her and not limit her based on her gender. Her mother had been very interested in math as a young woman, but had stopped at geometry because it wasn't considered proper for a lady to study math at that time. But she was interested in math, so. And then, similarly, her father wanted all of his children to be self-sufficient and gave his daughters the same education and opportunities as his son.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a very even playing field and had very encouraging parents. So one of the anecdotes I found everywhere was that when she was 7 years old, she wanted to understand how clocks worked. So alarm clocks, that is. And she went around to the house and found 7 alarm clocks and then took them all apart.
Whoa.
And then her mom found her with just like bits of alarm clock everywhere. And instead of getting mad at her, she took all of the alarm clocks away except one and allowed her to just take that one apart to try to figure out how it worked. So that's really all I found about her as a child.
Yeah.
But she's done a lot of other stuff, so we're gonna get to that.
Cool.
So Grace Murray was admitted to Vassar College at age 17. She got denied at age 16 because her Latin scores weren't good enough. Those darn pesky Latin scores.
Nobody freaking speaks Latin.
I took 8 years of Latin, and
8 years?
I wonder why sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took
a lot.
all of high school and like 4 years in college.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you did really well in your SATs.
Yeah, it was very helpful in my SATs.
Nice. Yeah.
But that is it.
Was Vassar an all-women's college?
I did not. It is now. I would think maybe. No, it's not?
No.
Okay. I don't know. I'm going to not pretend I know.
Yeah.
I didn't read anything saying it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was admitted to Vassar College at age 17 and graduated Phi Beta Kappa with a bachelor's in math and physics in 1928.
Whoa.
What is Phi Beta Kappa?
She graduated Phi Beta Kappa?
I think that is that a sorority, or is that like an honor, like the level of...
Yeah, there are honor societies at some universities that are also kind of fraternities.
Okay. I'm not quite sure what Phi Beta Kappa is.
I think it's an honors
thing.
I
thought it's like you have a certain GPA or something like that. Anyways, I'm going to guess it's good.
Yeah. She just was in a sorority.
It's very important. I don't think she was in a sorority, but... So, after she got her bachelor's, she proceeded to get her master's and then her PhD in mathematics from Yale. And got her PhD in 1934 at the age of 28. So, early but not crazy.
Yeah. That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I'm 28.
Yeah.
I don't have my PhD or my master's, but like, it's in the future.
You could, almost.
Yeah, one could.
We're close.
Yeah. And while studying at Yale, she married NYU professor Vincent Foster Hopper.
Whoa! Oh, scandalous.
But from a different university.
Oh, right.
So he's at NYU, she's at Yale. So, all good.
Not that scandalous.
2 thumbs up, all above board. Good job.
Yeah.
They divorced in the mid-40s, but she kept his name the rest of her life. So she's always, from this point on, Grace Hopper. I don't hear anything else about Vincent Foster Hopper, and I'm not sure what he did, but he was a professor.
He was was he math?
I don't know.
Oh.
Nope. NYU professor.
I wonder if he was just, like, actually really dumb, and she was like, I'm too good for you.
I like this this story, that is. I'm going to say probably not. He was an NYU professor. I don't know why they got divorced.
You can get really far on just confidence.
That's true. So let's not disparage poor Vincent Foster Hopper.
True,
Maybe he did. Maybe he was a great guy.
Like, didn't get along.
Yeah, maybe. Well, yeah, a lot happens as well.
Oh.
World War II happens.
Right.
After Grace Hopper got her PhD, she began teaching. Well, she began teaching mathematics at Vassar in 1931. I couldn't quite figure out how this timeline worked out.
Huh.
So she got her PhD in 1934.
Yeah.
And got her master's before that at Yale. So I think once she got her master's, she was teaching at Vassar and doing her PhD.
Because they're not that. Yale and Vassar aren't that
too
far.
far?
Like
Okay.
Poughkeepsie, New York is pretty far south.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so while she was getting her PhD, she also taught mathematics at Vassar. And then in 1941, she was promoted to associate professor at Vassar.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So World War II.
Right.
We've kind of covered this, I feel like, in a couple of our episodes. So World War II started in 1939, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in December 7th, 1941, was the attack on Pearl Harbor, and U.S. declared war on Japan the following day. And this is just kind of a setup for... I don't really know why I gave so much detail.
We're honestly going to become, like, World War II buffs.
Just, like, accidentally.
That's good.
Yeah.
I need to, like, know these things.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
So, it's World War II is going on, and I guess the whole point is we're now in World War II.
Yeah, that's just the context for this time period.
So, Grace Hopper, in 1943, decided to join the war effort, and her great-grandfather had been a U.S. Navy admiral. So she wanted to go into the Navy. So before World War II, women were only allowed in the armed forces as nurses and some administrative duties.
Right.
So they weren't really a big part of the armed forces. But because World War II was so big, and I think also piggybacking on the fact that World War I had happened not too far away, they needed women to kind of join the ranks.
Yeah. Well, World War II was the whole, like, women going into the workplace.
Yeah.
Phenomenon,
yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, so the U.S. Navy put together an all-female division called the Waves.
Ooh,
have you heard about this?
That. No.
Yeah, so Waves was women accepted for voluntary emergency services. My great-aunt is actually a Wave.
Do you think she knew Grace Hopper?
I don't know.
Or was it a lot of people?
It was a lot. It was a big...
Okay.
But she was kind of high up, my great-great-aunt. I need to figure that out. She's 104.
Oh my god.
She's still alive. Still lives in the house she was born in.
Oh gosh.
I know. So, okay, anyways. So, she joined the Waves. And although Hopper was originally rejected from the Waves because of her small size, I think she was like 105 pounds, and the minimum weight was like 120. And her age, so at this point she was 37. So she was a little old, and she was a little, like, light for kind of the requirements of the Navy. But they eventually accepted her and put her as a lieutenant junior grade. Oh. And Hopper was assigned to the Bureau of Ships Computational Project at Harvard University.
Wow.
Because of her big, strong math background. Where she worked on the Mark I.
Is that a ship?
No. It's the first electromechanical computer in the U.S. It's the first big computer, the Mark I. It was like 10,000 pounds.
Whoa.
It was an entire room.
Yeah, okay.
Like, if you've seen videos of, like, people putting cords into just holes.
Or, like, huge shelves into it. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So she worked on the Mark I, and the Mark I was developed by Howard Aiken, and under his guidance, Hopper and her colleagues used the Mark I for top-secret calculations during World War II.
Whoa. Like...
Needed for the war effort.
Like, what kind of calculations?
So,
like missiles?
Some of these calculations included computing rocket trajectories, calibrating minesweepers. And although I didn't see this in many places, in one of the interviews or one of the documentaries I watched, they said that eventually they used some of these computing powers to figure out to calculate how to make the first atomic bombs implode. Like that calculation of what pressure and what you needed to actually get an implosion.
I feel like so much science has come out of making the atomic bomb.
Yeah. Well, especially if we're talking about people who are during this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. After World War II, she requested to transfer into the regular Navy because the WAVE program was ending, but was denied because of the cutoff age was 38, and at this time she was around 40.
Okay.
So she couldn't join the normal Navy, but she was hooked on the emerging field of computer programming at this point.
Nice.
And she turned down a full professor position at Vassar to continue working as like a research assistant or as a research position at Harvard on the Mark II or the Mark I.
Okay.
And later the Marks 2 and 3.
Is that like named after a guy Mark, or is it like Mark?
I don't think so. I'm sure.
Like
I feel like
X
it
marks the
probably.
spot.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like it might stand for something too.
Yeah. Oh, that MARK.
Yeah, machine algorithm. I'm just making. I don't know what it could be.
Rightful knowledge.
Machine algorithm. Rhythmic
Crunchy.
knockers.
Blech.
Sorry.
No, we shouldn't let Emlyn guess words. It never turns out well.
So she turned down a full professor position to stay at Harvard and work under a Navy contract on the Mark I. And it's important to note that Hopper was not allowed to work as a professor at Harvard because at that point they didn't allow female professors. So she was kind of in a tight spot where she wanted to stay in the Navy, but she was too old, and then she wanted to be at Harvard, but she couldn't be a professor.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a story that has kind of made her famous, besides all of her actual scientific work. But Hopper and her team were having problems with the Mark II computer because something was causing a glitch in the system. And finally they discovered that a moth was stuck in one of the electrical switches controlling a circuit of the Mark II. And so Hopper is known for coining the term computer bug or debugging.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And they actually, in some museum, I forgot to write it down, but they actually have the actual moth.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen on Reddit people open up their computers and they're full of cockroaches. Have you ever seen that? Like their computers aren't working and they're like, I don't know what's wrong with it, and they open it up and there's like ants in it or cockroaches.
That's why you shouldn't eat near your
maybe
computer.
It's fake, but
maybe.
I think some bugs really like electronics.
Yeah. Don't crazy ants?
Yeah. They love it.
So good. At some point, the fact that she could neither be a professor at Harvard nor could she be in the Navy caused her to go into the private sector.
Wow.
So in 1949, she started working at Eckert Mauchly Computer Corporation as a senior mathematician. And this company had built the first electronic computer known as ENIAC. And in the early 1950s, developed the Universal Automatic Computer, UNIVAC. Have you heard of UNIVAC?
I don't think so. I mean, that word sounds familiar, but it could be sounds like a vacuum or university. I don't know.
So the UNIVAC was the first commercial electronic computer.
Wow.
And so at the time, UNIVAC became synonymous with computer, so people would be like, I'm gonna...
Like Kleenex.
Yeah, exactly.
Band-Aid.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of... It was just pretty much synonymous because that was what everybody used. If they had a computer at a big business, it was going to be a UNIVAC.
Wow.
And they're still half the size of your bed or something like that. They're the size of a desk. They're not portable they're still huge. So, do you know how computers work?
Zeros and ones.
Yes. Good. It's kind of important to note that at the time, so UNIVAC was one computer that was pretty predominant, but there was a bunch of other computers, and the Navy had a lot of computers, and every new version, so if you download a program or an app onto your computer, it'll ask you what, do you have a Mac OS, or do you have a Windows, and kind of what edition it is.
Right, yeah.
So, at the time, you had all of these different kind of OS systems or different computers. And in order to write any type of program or to program anything into that computer, you had a language specific to that computer.
Okay.
So if they updated anything, you had to rewrite all your code.
Oh my gosh.
And also the code, it wasn't zeros and ones, but it was computer specific, and it was very, very tedious and really hard. It was a lot of symbols and stuff like that. It wasn't intuitive at all.
The zeros and ones, what is that language called? Did it come later, or?
No, that's generally what goes into the computer, into the machine. It's the machine code.
Okay.
But kind of a higher process is operating system specific, but that'll tell you this is what you need to type up to do a for command or to do a multiplier command or something like that.
Yeah.
But they're still very clunky and system specific. And so they were spending so much money on programmers that had to be specific. Like you had to write code for each specific type of computer, and you had to rewrite it in a different language for each different type of computer, or if you updated the computer. So it was costing a lot of money, and it was very tedious, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one thing that was going on. At the same time, Hopper suggested that they develop a programming language that would use English words or something similar to English words rather than these like really abstract symbols that were really hard for people to intuitively code.
Right.
So it was a really, people were using really unwieldy, non-intuitive symbols for doing their code.
Yeah,
and she was saying, let's try to do something that's similar to just English words.
That makes sense.
As possible.
Like something they could read and understand and teach to new people, probably.
But she was told that would not work. And so 3 years later, in 1952, she published a paper on compilers, and Hopper and her team created the first compiler for programming languages, Compiler A. So essentially, do you know what a compiler is?
No.
Yeah. So a compiler translates written instructions or your programming language into a code that can be read by a computer.
Oh.
So if you have so essentially whenever you download like a program that says, do you want it for Mac or for, whatever, what it's doing is it has the same code, like programming code, and then it has a compiler that allows you to look at it or use it on each type of OS system or each type of computer.
Gotcha.
So the compiler is what converts your general code into something that can be read by that specific computer. So now with compilers, you could write general code that could then be used on any computer if you just had the right compiler.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Yes. The compiler A0 that Hopper and her team created was an important step towards creating modern programming languages.
Wow.
And at this time, each machine, as I kind of said before, has its own specific code that had to be learned, and this involved writing codes in these like kind of unintuitive symbols. And because new programming languages were proliferating at a really high rate, because you had all these different computers, so you had to have different languages for each computer, the cost of programming and of translating programs to run on new hardware was extremely costly. So if you got an upgrade to a new computer, you had to rewrite all your code.
Oh my gosh.
So once they made this compiler, she says that nobody believed that she had a running compiler and nobody would touch it. They told me computers could only do arithmetic. So they didn't think that you could get a computer to kind of do translation. They only thought you could get computers to like add these numbers or multiply, like do this equation. So she also kind of expanded what people thought you could do with computers.
Do you ever think about the things that you don't believe can happen right now? And do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or like when people present things to you and you're like, ugh, this isn't real, or like, this is BS, or we'll never be able to do that, or I don't know. Have to be more open-minded, I think.
I think so. I think we can, I think the world is our oyster.
Yeah. It just seems like a lot of these stories are like, nobody believed XYZ could happen, and then they did it, kind of.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, in the spring of 1959, computer experts from the government and industry came together for the Conference on Data System Languages, CODISIL. And Hopper served as a technical consultant to the committee defining the new COBOL language. So this was a language, so she urged and encouraged everybody to use a single programming language that based on the different, you could have then different compilers for each computer, so you could have this one language.
Nice.
The language compiled Hopper's Flowmatic language with an IBM language called Comtran. And the COBOL programming language was close to English as Hopper had long urged. So
nice.
When she had earlier said, we should make this as close to English as possible, and people were like, you can't do that. So they did make this COBOL programming language pretty close to English. Importantly, COBOL wasn't written by Hopper. It was just encouraged and kind of overseen by Hopper. But COBOL was written by a team of programmers, including 2 other women, Jean Sammet and Gertrude Tierney. And then COBOL is still used today as one of the most ubiquitous business languages to date. And a lot of it now is upkeeping systems that people had programmed before. Yeah, but at one point, it was everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah. So this kind of goes to what you were saying earlier.
Oh, no.
Kind of. So this is a quote from Grace Hopper. She said, "People have an enormous tendency to resist change.
Oh, yeah.
They love to say, we've always done it this way. I try to fight that."
That's great.
Yeah.
Aww.
So one of the symbolic ways she fought this tendency to resist change was that she had a clock that went counterclockwise.
What?
In her office.
Did she make it?
I couldn't figure out what was going on. I don't know if she bought it or she made it. But yeah, so it went counterclockwise, kind of to show that it doesn't have to only be one way. And people would get really confused.
That blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And, okay, so at the end of 1966, Hopper retired from the Navy Reserve as a commander. And in an interview with 60 Minutes, she said it was the saddest day of her life.
Oh, why did she do it?
I think she was forced to retire.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sucks.
But luckily, she was recalled to active duty in August 1967.
Oh,
so, 6 months later.
They were like, we can't do this without you.
Yeah, we need you.
We could.
We need you, Grace.
That's sweet.
And so for the next 10 years, Hopper served as the director of the Navy Programming Language Group for the Navy. And in 1969, Hopper was awarded the first Data Processing Management Association's Man of the Year Award.
No.
The first one.
What?
So they knew they were going to give it to Grace Hopper, but yet they still named it.
Joke.
No.
Oh.
They still named it Man of the Year Award.
Because you can't possibly be a woman and be that good.
Except the first one we're going to give out is to a woman.
Just name it an award.
I know. I don't understand.
Man of the Year.
If it was they had already named it and she was later on and they gave it to her, it might make sense. But if you're the first, they're making this award and you're the first one, why are you naming it?
So
anyways.
Stupid.
So
leave it to a bunch of men.
Okay.
I love men. Sorry.
Only after another woman won the award 10 years later, this person's Ruth Davis, the award was finally renamed to the Distinguished Information Sciences Award.
What a stupid... Just never call it the Man of the Year Award. It's that easy.
Anyways, I thought that was just so funny. So, in the 1970s, she developed standards for testing computer systems and programming languages, such as COBOL, which was that one that she oversaw, and also Fortran. And in the 80s, in the 80s, these tests were incorporated by the National Bureau of Standards. And then in 1973, she was promoted to captain. In 1983, she was promoted to commodore. And in 1985, she became rear admiral.
Whoa, is that the top?
No, it's the bottom of the admirals.
Oh, okay.
It's the bottom of the top.
It's the rear, yeah.
It's the rear. It's the rear of the front.
Okay.
Yeah. And then she retired in 1986 at the age of 79 as the oldest serving officer in the armed services.
Get it. Nice.
But apparently Grace Hopper did not want to retire.
Yeah.
So then she said she would be bored stiff if she stopped working entirely. So she worked the computer industry for several years after her retirement from the Navy.
Oh, okay.
So she just kept working.
Yeah.
And in 1991, she received the National Medal of Technology, becoming the first female to receive this award.
Wow.
And so this is the highest honor the United States can confer to a U.S. citizen for achievements related to technological progress.
Well,
and they gave it to her for her pioneering accomplishments in the development of computer programming languages that simplified computer technology and opened the door to a significantly larger universe of users.
wow.
Yeah.
Aww.
And so Grace Hopper is also famous for her visual aids during seminars and talks. So apparently when generals and admirals would ask her why satellite communication takes so long, she would show them a piece of wire that was just under 1 foot, so 300 millimeters. And this represents the maximal distance light can travel in a nanosecond.
Wow.
And she would just be... She would just show them, she would just like shake this like piece of wire at them and be like, think how many of these it takes to get back to from the satellite back to you.
I think we should bring back visuals in seminars, or like besides PowerPoint,
and
tangible.
Yes, for sure. And she also used this like little nanosecond wire to tell people why they shouldn't waste even a nanosecond, because it was like a tangible.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, so Grace Hopper died on New Year's Day in 1992 in her sleep, and she was 85. And she was buried in Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors.
Whoa, cool, I've been there.
Okay, so a little bit about her legacy. She was awarded 40 honorary degrees and dozens of other awards. Posthumously?
Listeners, let us know.
I think it's I think, what did you say?
Wait, now I don't know. Posthumously?
Posthumously.
Stupid,
President Obama awarded her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Aww.
Which is the highest civilian award in the United States. And then every year, the world's largest gathering of women computer scientists and technologists occurs, and this is called the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing.
That's amazing.
And then finally, kind of as I said at the beginning, the U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Hopper is named after her.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that's Grace Hopper.
Yay!
I hope I explained computers, because I don't.
I don't think I'll ever, really understand computers.
At this time, they had you had to feed cards. So before they had higher level programming languages, they would, punch holes for the zeros and ones that corresponded to whatever.
I know.
Which is insane. I
still don't get it.
Yeah.
I wonder what she would think of, smartphones and...
I watched some documentaries about her and some interviews with her. She is awesome. And she is so optimistic and forward, was so optimistic cool. And was just excited for the future and thought we could do anything and was not afraid of technology or...
Nice.
Yeah.
At least she was there for, the birth of the internet, right?
1992?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Internet came around in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
She sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I wonder, did you read any more about her personal life after she was married?
No. She got divorced during or after World War II, 45 or something like that.
And then was pretty much a workaholic, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I think she...
Or just happy doing
Yeah, I think she loved her job and didn't like being idle and...
Yeah.
So...
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and, she was she's very, very short. I think she's 5 foot when she gets older and just is known to go around and she's just chain smoking. And she always wore her Navy outfit.
Yeah, I think I've seen pictures of her in that cute hat.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and it was interesting. She was definitely didn't consider herself a feminist. Her experience, there was nothing that a woman could do.
Yeah.
Well, not nothing, but I don't think she thought that she was held. She didn't feel like she was held back in any way, and just didn't think that it was like you needed to be feminist because everybody was equal. So like she had a very different interaction than like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
At
Except
that time.
that she couldn't be a professor at heart. You know, it's
Yeah,
like there's these little things.
I don't know
where,
if she was just so optimistic that she didn't see the barriers.
Or she just, I guess, just took whatever opportunity she had and was happy with them.
Yeah. I mean,
level. Yeah.
She rose through the ranks, so maybe when one door closes, a better door opens, and she just didn't think it was. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And she, in an interview with like 60 Minutes, I think, they asked if she thought that women should be in the armed forces in like the... Combat, yes, that word, combat. And she like didn't think women should be in combat because she didn't think they would do it as well. And then the person was like, but what about like you being a mathematician in the Navy? And she was like, women have always been mathematicians. So like I also was like, all right, I mean, different,
kind of like a miss and a hit.
Yeah. So yeah, she was very interesting.
Yeah.
I liked listening to her a lot.
Yeah, kind of a trailblazer with a little bit of old school.
Yeah, she was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's Grace Hopper.
Yay. Okay, break.
Work.
Emlyn.
This is our next section?
Yeah, this is the women who work, right? Shout outs to badass ladies doing science now.
Yes. Exactly.
All right. So the first shout out goes to Susanna Rossi and Karen Krakowski.
Woo woo! I love it. What did they do?
Susanna or Susanna is a neuroscientist at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco.
Yep.
And Karen is a postdoc in her lab. They, along with quite a few other collaborators, published a study this week. Okay, wait, I don't want to give away too much.
Okay.
Let me ask
you. Do you want me to guess what it's about?
No. I'm going to ask you a question first of all. Okay, what do you think is one of the most dangerous things about humans moving to Mars?
Well, from The Martian...
I don't even think that this was addressed in The Martian.
The microbiome and your lack of. Being in one place with a bunch of people and not killing them.
No.
Well, there is that new podcast called The Habitat that's all about all these experiments that they're doing where they put a bunch of people in a place simulating people living on Mars.
Gosh.
Anyways, apparently I'm just shouting out to other podcasts.
How do we live on Earth without killing each other? We don't really, so...
But it's not quite it's like the Real House. Or no, it's like Real World.
Yeah.
Kind of. Because you're like stuck in one really small place.
Oh my gosh. Or like Big Brother. Okay. Think of something more atmospheric. Like about the planet itself. Like why would Mars itself how could it harm us, or...
Got weird gravity?
I actually don't know about that, but here's...
Tell me what you do know.
Okay, so one of the dangers that humans face going into deep space or somewhere like Mars is cosmic radiation.
Oh,
That's like thousands of times more powerful than radiation on Earth, or even like if we travel to the moon or the International Space Station.
Yeah. Mars is closer to the sun?
Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars.
Okay. These are very good things we're learning.
Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, by Pluto. Yeah.
Uranus is just the worst.
Yeah. We're not going to Uranus.
No. Okay.
Okay. If we go to Mars, we face the danger of a lot of cosmic radiation. One of the reasons why radiation is bad, and they've studied this in Rossi's lab, is that mice exposed to lots of radiation they've found have problems with memory, social interactions, and anxiety. Like
in addition to cancer?
Probably, yeah.
Right? Radiation? Cancer?
Yeah. So cosmic radiation in the lab has had effects on the mice's memory, social interactions, and anxiety, which is like, and some of the symptoms are like similar to Alzheimer's symptoms.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah. And these like cognitive impairments are potentially caused by the activation of cells called microglia, which are immune defense cells in the central nervous system.
Okay.
So, like, if your brain becomes infected by, like, a virus or a fungus, these microglia will search out that foreign invader and engulf it and try to destroy it.
Okay.
So they're immune cells in the brain.
Gotcha.
After radiation, they become really active. So they become too active. Like, they cause inflammation in the brain, and they destroy and consume synapses, which are the connections between nerve cells.
Okay.
So yeah, similar to brain changes that you see in Alzheimer's patients.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
You do not want astronauts with Alzheimer's.
Right, yeah. Like people going to Mars and then going crazy almost.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. But here's the cool thing.
Okay.
Or, this is what they found in their new paper.
Oh, that was the old paper?
Yeah, that was all background.
This is all teaser material.
Okay. They are trying out different drugs to combat the effects in the brain after radiation. And this week they published a paper on a successful drug. The drug is called PLX5622. And it's produced by a pharmaceutical company, Plexicon.
Okay.
And I don't actually even know what the drug is on a, like, chemical basis, but it's been shown to prevent cognitive deficits in mouse during cancer radiation therapy when it's administered prior to irradiation of the brain. However, in this experiment, they gave it to mice like a week after they experienced radiation, and they still saw that it prevented the activation of microglia.
Oh, nice.
So they could give it to the mice like after experiencing radiation, and it helped.
Nice.
And it's cool, like, because maybe this will be helpful for us going to Mars. It also might be a helpful treatment for certain cancers, I think, in the brain, and for Alzheimer's and other, like, cognitive problems you get in life.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I have no interest in going to Mars.
I don't want to go to Mars either. I think it would be a little bit lonely for me.
Yeah. I mean, you could bring people. But you kill all of them,
if I were
wouldn't you?
there with people I really like, and that's it.
Yeah.
It just would be such a different way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think my family would want to go, so...
If Bob Dylan was there, though. No, what's his
Really?
name? Not Bob Dylan. The guy who's in The Martian.
Matt Damon. I was like, you would go for Bob Dylan? Like,
I guess he's a little old, Bob
Dylan. He could play you some songs.
He'd entertain me. Matt Dillon, yes. No, Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Okay.
Matt Dillon is the guy in The Outsiders, and There's Something About Mary.
I don't know, I don't like the cut of his jib.
Really? I used to have a huge crush on him.
Really? He looks like a less funny looking, he looks like Jim Carrey.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
Like,
one of these is, this is Matt Dillon, and that's Jim Carrey.
Those are both Jim Carrey.
I think we've gotten off topic.
Anyway, good job, gals.
Yep, good job.
Good going, gals.
Good. GGG. No, that's...
Wrong GGG.
That's a very different GGG.
Okay, good job.
Okay, you got another one for me?
Second shout out.
Woo woo.
This shout out goes to a team, including a man. I'm sorry, but not sorry. Okay. A team of researchers this week, Richard Unsworth, Leanne Cullen Unsworth, and Lena Matwana Nordland. So 2 out of 3. Good going, gals. My new thing, I guess. Okay, published a study this week in Conservation Letters that provided evidence that 1/5 of the world's largest fisheries are dependent on seagrass meadows.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very
and healthy seagrass meadows in particular. So they're seagrasses, those are marine flowering plants, and they form these huge meadows basically in shallow seas. and provide habitat for a lot of fish, including a lot of commercial fish stocks.
Mm-hmm.
And they provide habitat for food that the fish eat, like invertebrates. However, seagrasses are declining rapidly due to land and sea-based threats like runoff, coastal development, boat damage, trawling, etc., you name it. And possibly climate change, like warmer, more acidic oceans. Mm-hmm. And this paper essentially discussed how imperative these seagrass meadows were to fishery health.
Okay.
And basically we're calling on fishery management people to try to help in seagrass conservation since their populations are declining so rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are like nurseries or areas where there's a lot of growth of fish. It kind of behooves them to keep them healthy.
And they need, and most conservation agencies don't get a ton of support. Mm-hmm. And so getting like a huge industry like the fishing industry on their side is, I think, like really imperative to saving a lot of seagrasses.
Yeah, very cool.
And so, it's just a really nice paper discussing the importance of seagrasses to fisheries around the world.
Nice.
Yeah. So good job, you guys.
Woo!
Yay. And that's it for shout-outs.
I love it. And we're going to put our trivia on Twitter. We're just going to have pre-episode trivia about... Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. We'll just ask people we'll put up teasers and you can guess like who we're going to be talking about in the next week.
Yeah.
And trivia on the pod is canceled.
It's canceled. Sounds so dire.
Okay, announcements.
So I forgot to give a shout out at the beginning, but Grace Hopper was suggested by the Zipkin Lab. So at Zipkin Lab. So thanks, guys, for giving me that suggestion. Please subscribe and rate us on iTunes and give us a review so people can find us.
Yeah.
We want to keep this up. We'd like people to listen.
Yeah.
It's fun to make, but it'd be more fun if people listen.
Emlyn and I are learning a lot.
We're learning so much.
But we hope
other people will learn too.
And we're still interested in constructive feedback.
Definitely. We have a Twitter that you can follow us on, which is STEM Fatale Pod. And our music, our intro and outro music, were done by Artichoke, and the song's Mary Anning.
And if you have any questions for us or things you want us to discuss on the podcast, you can also email us now at stemfatalepod@gmail.com. I think that's everything.
How you like STEM apples?
Woo, bye.
Bye.
By circa 1820, she ran a fossil store. She put the bones together.